and welcome. This webinar is a collaboration with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, VA Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiative, and the National Cemetery Administration. My name is True Luster Pauling. I am the Senior Outreach Specialist in CFOI. I will be your moderator this afternoon. Everyone's mic has been muted. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A box on the right of your screen. I will read the questions at the end of the presentation, and our presenter today will provide a response. If you registered for this event, we will send this presentation along with any handouts to you after this webinar. This is a live recording. I would like to thank Mr. Larry Provost for this collaboration. We are grateful for your time today. But first, I would like to introduce Mr. Conrad Washington, Director of the VA Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiative. Conrad Washington serves as Director for the VA Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiative. In this capacity, he provides collaborative, strategic leadership to develop and cultivate partnerships with faith-based, nonprofit, and community organizations. These partnerships assist to increase awareness and enrollment in VA programs and services. Mr. Washington is a licensed minister, actively serving and currently pursuing a master's degree in divinity, pastoral studies with Moody Theological Seminary. He also holds a master's degree in business management from the University of Redlands and a bachelor's of science degree in education from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Additionally, he is a graduate of VA's class of 2017 Virtual Expiring Leaders Program. Mr. Washington.
Thank you, True. I appreciate it. I hope everyone can hear me. I say this every time as we do these webinars, but my team hasn't stopped me yet, so I assume that you can hear me. Thank you all for joining us today. I want to first thank Larry for taking time out of his schedule. He's traveled with us to Dallas previously in so many different times. So Larry, my friend, my colleague, I appreciate you taking time and sharing with us your subject matter knowledge on this topic, which is very important, and I think it's very appropriate at the time, especially during COVID and the holidays. So we appreciate you and thank you for being here today. Thank all of you all for being there. I know I see some pastors on the line who I know. Thank you all for joining us. As I look at the schedule here, I'm reminded of Jeremiah. Here I go. It says that before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and I set you apart. I believe that many pastors and clergy have been set apart to do a great work, and I believe that the great work they're doing, that the VA can help you do that. And so that's why we're here to extend all of the resources and information that we have here in the VA, and consider us at the Center of Faith as a front door for all clergy, no matter what your denomination is. Because if you serve veterans, we want to serve you that you may be able to serve those veterans within your congregations and your areas. We thank you for being here today, and I will be quiet, and hopefully you will enjoy this brief debate. So thank you and be blessed.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Now I would like to briefly introduce Mr. Larry Provost, our presenter for today. Please read his entire bio on the slide that you see. Mr. Provost is the Outreach Officer for the National Cemetery Administration, a position he has held since 2017. Mr. Provost is currently serving in the Virginia National Guard for over 21 years and recently commissioned as a chaplain candidate. He currently volunteers to provide military funeral honors for the National Guard. Mr. Provost holds a master's degree in legislative affairs from the George Washington University, a master's degree in government from Regent University, a master's degree in history from Liberty University, and will shortly complete his master's of divinity from Liberty University. Now I give you Mr. Larry Provost from the National Cemetery Administration. Thank you.
Thank you, True. Thank you, Conrad. Hopefully this is the right tone of voice and everybody can hear me okay. And thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm really honored to partner with the Center for Faith and Opportunity Initiatives. And what I just cannot echo what Conrad said enough. If you need a gateway to Veterans Affairs, this is the office to go through. I mean, they're just absolutely incredible people, and they just have true servants' hearts. So, and I personally am honored to to continue working with them. And so thank you very much, and thank you all for what you do. It is your work is truly eternal, and just really appreciate all of you. And with that, I'm ready to begin my presentation. I believe True or Mr. Morales may be bringing up the slideshow. My intent is definitely not to, oh, okay, great. I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death. We will go through the PowerPoint, but first I just want to talk to you in a way that, frankly, I would want to be talked to, about these types of benefits, because we could spend hours and hours on this type of stuff. And frankly, we're dealing with a subject that the American people, for various reasons, just don't like to talk about anymore. People are living longer. For example, people are so focused on being younger and getting younger that we've really forgotten that death is a huge part of life. And so that's basically what we try to bridge that gap in the National Cemetery Administration. And what briefly I'd like to say before we go through the PowerPoint is basically that we help veterans and their families with three legacies. We currently have 151 national cemeteries in the VA, essentially all of them except Arlington. There are a few others as well, but Arlington is actually run by the U.S. Army, and it has very stringent standards for to be buried there. But we have 151 national cemeteries throughout the country. Again, most of them except Arlington and a few others. In our cemeteries, for the veterans and the veteran's spouse, we help you leave three legacies. The first legacy is a financial legacy. In our cemeteries, for both the veteran and the veteran's spouse, the opening and closing of the grave is free. The grave liner, which is like the vault, is free. The government headstone is free. And the forever care and maintenance of the grave is absolutely free for both the veteran and the veteran's spouse. Heaven forbid, the spouse passes away first, same benefit still applies. Even if you choose to be buried in a private cemetery, we still can give the government headstone, government marker, or the government medallion, which can be affixed to a private headstone, absolutely free. The average savings, if a veteran chooses to have themselves and their spouse interred in a national cemetery, could be anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000, depending on the locale. So that's the financial legacy. The second legacy that we help leave is a legacy of peace, and that legacy is through our pre-need program. And we'll go into the pre-need program during the brief, but in that legacy of peace, that second legacy, that's basically a veteran can sign up beforehand to ensure that their eligibility is squared away. And what that does in leaving a legacy of peace, it assures the family when the time of need does come, they don't have to be looking in the attic, looking in the basement, looking in the closet for the veteran's DD 214. That should be a time that's dedicated to grieving, to mourning, not to having to be looking for paperwork. But we also help leave an additional legacy of peace through that program. In that, unlike civilian programs, signing up with us does not mandate that you have to be buried in any of our national cemeteries. It merely provides the option. And the final legacy that we help leave is the legacy of what I like to call eternal or perpetual memorialization. And that's done, as I've mentioned previously, we have our headstones, we have our markers, we have our medallions, but we also have our Veterans Legacy Memorial, which is the official online U.S. government remembrance platform for veterans, and the Veterans Legacy Program, which I'll also be discussing in a little bit. And with that, again, our three legacies are the financial legacy, the legacy of peace, and the legacy of eternal memorialization. And just keep those things in mind as we're going through the slideshow. Next slide, please. Okay. So the National Cemetery Administration, we were founded in 1973, but our roots actually extend back to the American Civil War in 1862 through President Abraham Lincoln. So there's a little more information about that. Next slide, please. This is a map. I'm not sure how well it shows up on your screen, but in the PowerPoint, it shows where all of our cemeteries are. You can see nearly every state in the union is covered, and we have 5 districts. And again, that's 151 national cemeteries. getting ready to be 153 very, very soon, with more to come. Almost 4 million grave sites. Next slide, please. Again, it gives our number of cemeteries. The Army does have 37 cemeteries, previously mentioned Arlington. Department of the Interior, they have 14 national cemeteries. You know, we think of Gettysburg and other places, for example. But also, there are 2 Department of the Interior cemeteries that are still accepting burials. Andersonville National Cemetery, the site of the Civil War prison in Georgia, and Andrew Johnson National Cemetery in Tennessee. The overseas cemeteries are actually overseen by a separate federal agency, the American Battle Monuments Commission. And those cemeteries are all closed for new burials. The only time they do a new burial is if, for example, remains from World War I or World War II are found, and the Mexican in the United States would like that soldier or that Marine to be buried overseas. Next slide, please. NCA. Now, we're one of the 3 of the, I don't want to say the main agencies of VA, but basically one of the 3, foundational agencies of Veterans Affairs. But we only have 2,000 people that work in the entire agency. So by far, we are the smallest of the 3 main agencies within VA. And most of those individuals are not located at headquarters, but they're out in the field. 77% of them are veterans, and that is very important for us, not just because it's the highest number in the federal government, but we know that veterans know how to take care of veterans. Not that other people don't, but we just feel a special and a particular bond to the people in the families that we serve. We only have one time to get this right. 38% are service-connected disabled veterans and 9% are female veterans. That number is rising, especially as the funeral industry, which is, normally been, kind of slow to change and so forth. More and more women are showing interest in the funeral industry. Next slide, please. This is very important, not as a pat on the back, but this is very important as a reminder to all of us in the agency. For the 7th consecutive time last year, we received the highest ranking of any organization, public or private, in the American Customer Satisfaction Index. So government agencies and private companies. And that's very important for us because, again, it just underscores that we only have one chance to get it right. Not that a hospital doesn't, not that claims and benefits, don't do an important role. They absolutely do. But literally with NCA, the one time you see us may be the only time. Next slide, please. This just gives this chart here, some examples of the number of burials per year. Riverside National Cemetery in California is actually the busiest national cemetery, busier even than Arlington, over 8,000 burials per year. You see, of course, we got Florida National, Calverton out on Long Island, Fort Snelling, Dallas, Fort Worth. We got a few in Texas, and obviously we have quite a few down in Florida. For some reason, people like to go south, especially as they get older. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just another slide with charts on the number of interments and so forth. It says national up top, 134,000 interments, but it lists states there as well, and those are our state cemetery veteran partners. So like in Maryland, for example, we have Cheltenham State Cemetery, State Veteran Cemetery. A lot of people think it's a national cemetery. It's actually not. They're a state cemetery partner. We give them funding, and essentially the cemeteries are run according to the very high standards that we have. Of course, headstones, markers, medallions, 345,000 of them. And our most popular benefit is actually the Presidential Memorial Certificates. And what that benefit is if a veteran passes away, you can get an unlimited number of certificates signed by the current commander-in-chief. And now, obviously, if you ask for 500 of them, we may call and ask, well, why do you need 500? But if you ask for 10, that's not a problem at all. And it comes on really, really nice paper, really nice parchment paper, and it's signed by the current commander-in-chief. One of the questions we do get is, can we get a past commander-in-chief? Maybe it was President Kennedy or somebody like that, President Reagan. Unfortunately, we can't by law offer that, but what you can do is start with the current commander-in-chief and continue on. So my grandfather, for example, he passed away when Ronald Reagan was president. My grandmother got the Presidential Memorial Certificate, and she's actually applied and received a new certificate from every president since that time. Next slide, please. Okay. One of the most important phone numbers, in fact, probably the most important phone number I can give you today, is that toll-free number right there. That is 1-800-535-1117. That is our scheduling office, which is open 7 days a week, 362 days a year, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The eligibility, any veteran who dies on active duty, or you had a discharge that was other than dishonorable, honorable or general, and you had a period of active duty. This does include National Guard and reservists, especially since September 11, 2001, if they have a period of active duty. The active duty's got to be for other than training and other than, our 2 weeks of annual training during the summer. But since 9/11, many, many more Guard and reservists have been found eligible because of that, because so many have been called up for a period of active duty. Of course, if you're a Guard or reservist and maybe you never served any active duty, but you have 20 years of qualifying service and you're eligible for retirement pay, you're also eligible by that. I did mention spouses. Heaven forbid if the spouse passes away first. This is a difficult subject, but an important one. Children. In the circumstance where a minor child of an eligible veteran passes away, we will inter that child, if the family so wishes, within our cemeteries. Thankfully, it's a very, very rare occurrence, but there are occasions where we do bury children. We do bury certain adult children as well, if they're an eligible dependent. And what I mean by that is they may be an adult child who's under court-ordered care, mandate of their parents still. Maybe there's some challenges and so forth to where they're still under the legal authority of their parents. Again, that is rare as well, but we do cover that. And of course, certain parents, if a veteran is killed, for example, overseas or dies on active duty and is not married, in that case, that's where we would see to inter those parents as well, if they so wanted. Next slide, please. Okay. I did talk about pre-need a little bit earlier. Again, the same toll-free number. You can press option 3 to get some more information about pre-need, but it helps the family with those decisions before the time of need. It does not guarantee burial in a specific space. We don't hold grave sites normally unless one spouse died and was a veteran, the other spouse happens to be a veteran. Then you can get a side-by-side. So that in that case, we would hold. But normally we do the stacking mechanism, one on top of the other. So we don't normally reserve grave sites. But that's why we're continuously expanding our cemeteries. And most of them are still accepting burial or cremation. Next slide. Okay. So this gives a visual on some of the benefits that I talked about. You see the upright headstone there. That's the government headstone that I mentioned. There is a flat marker there that can be used in our cemeteries as well, or a private cemetery. The same thing for the government headstone. That can be used in a private cemetery. Those are absolutely free. Now, a private cemetery may pay for the cost of having to install it. So with the actual making of the government headstone, the government marker, absolutely free. On the right, you'll see the bronze medallion. What the medallion is, it's affixed to a private headstone in a private cemetery. And that also is made absolutely free. Certain cemeteries may charge to have it placed on the headstone. But it's a nice little medallion that annotates that veteran's branch of military service. You see that one, for example, says U.S. Army. No offense to Mr. Washington, our brother in arms from the Marine Corps, but we do it for all branch of service. The niche covers, that is for cremation. One of the things that we see is now that 2/3 of burial committal services are actually cremation now. For many years there were many people may have had some objections and so forth, but for various reasons, whether maybe their faith traditions opened up to it, financial reasons. Cremation has become much more popular as an option. Of course, the burial flag will be provided regardless of whether it's casketed or cremation. And again, on there is the Presidential Memorial Certificate, an example of it. But it comes on nice 8.5 by 11, again, on very nice paper as well. Next slide, please. Okay, our Undersecretary's 3 priorities are preserving their legacy, ensuring that no veteran ever dies. And what he means by that is that it's been said that we die 2 deaths, in the sense that we die a physical death, but there's also a death when our name is spoken for the last time. And here at NCA, we're determined to ensure that every veteran's name is spoken. Of course, providing access and choosing VA and partnering to serve veterans. Next slide, please. And again, I said this exact same thing. So next slide. Okay, the Veterans Legacy Program. What we do with that, we partner with educational institutions across the country, primarily colleges, but also some at the high school level as well. And we create those partnerships and we engage students to actually go into the cemetery and do research on the veterans who are buried there. And what that does, that helps preserve the legacy of those veterans, but it also introduces an American public that's increasingly disconnected from its veteran population to the veterans that are buried there. So even if the cemetery is no longer taking burials, in a sense, we're actually ensuring that that cemetery is never, ever closed. Next slide, please. Now, this is the Veterans Legacy Memorial. It's a little different than the Veterans Legacy Program. Veterans Legacy Memorial is the official U.S. government online platform to where families and loved ones can leave online tributes in regards to veterans that have passed away. And that program was just launched last year, and it's becoming increasingly popular by the day. We do screen the comments to ensure there's no political statements, there's no hate speech on there, and so forth. And thankfully, the comments that have been rejected are extremely minute. Most people see this for what it should be, just a very positive way to honor veterans and to interact, and so forth. Next slide, please. Okay, again, a little more about the Veterans Legacy Memorial. This gives a screenshot of what it looks like, for example. Nearly 4 million veterans have their own VLM page. Their website is actually, it's easy to remember, www.va.gov/remember. It's pretty easy even for me to remember. And, of course, you can Google it online as well, Veterans Legacy Memorial. Next slide, please. Okay, this shows where some of our newer cemeteries are. We understand that burial space is very hard to get by in New York City. That's why we have found Urban Columbarium actually in New York. Los Angeles National Cemetery, we actually launched a new columbarium across the street from that cemetery out in LA recently. We're working in Chicago. We also have rural initiatives. Fargo, North Dakota was just opened up last year. Wyoming National Cemetery, Pikes Peak National Cemetery out in Colorado, Western New York National Cemetery will be opening up soon. So we're really working to ensure that 95% of veterans have a burial space or a cremation space within 75 miles of where they live. That is our goal. Next slide, please. Oh, again, I was ahead of the game. I already mentioned that. So 95% is our goal. We're on our way. 93.28 is where we're going to be at soon. Next slide. Veteran Cemetery Grants Program. Again, that's where our state partners come in. We give money to the states, local tribal cemeteries throughout the country, and they run them essentially according to the very high standards that we have. Next slide. Okay. That YouTube video, yep, that'll be in the slideshow, so you actually can watch it yourself. But what I like to do actually is to, just to interact and take questions if anybody has them. Of course, I'm also very happy to give my contact information as well, so you can contact me directly and so forth. But there it is. Maybe there's a question you don't want to ask in front of everybody else, and that's fine. Two of the questions I do get, and I do want to address to this group. The first one is, say a spouse passes away and a veteran remarries and that spouse passes away. The question is, yes, subsequent spouses are eligible for interment. There is a veteran who has 4 spouses buried in one cemetery in Texas who is still living. And the second is, in regards to faith traditions, our cemeteries normally are open for burial Monday or cremation Monday through Friday for burial or cremation. But if there is a pressing religious reason, for example, maybe somebody needs to be buried within 24 hours, we do our best, not to be blasphemous, but to move heaven and earth to make that happen. We do our absolute best to try to accommodate that. So we will open up for a Saturday, or we will open up for a Sunday to accommodate a religious request. That is very important. Also, over a 3-day federal holiday weekend, for example, Memorial Day, by law, we cannot be closed to burials or interments for more than 2 days. So over that federal holiday weekend, we will be open at least one of those days. Normally, it's the Saturday, but we do our best to accommodate faith traditions. Muslims, for example, or Orthodox Christians, many of them, wish to be buried facing a particular way. We do our very best to accommodate that. We do say that we do not discriminate in our cemeteries, meaning that we have sections only for particular religious groups. We would never do that. One of the great things about our cemeteries is that we say all veterans are equal there. But we do, of course, if the space is available, we will definitely try to accommodate that request to honor that faith tradition. And with that, I'm very happy to go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Provost, for that very informative presentations. We do have questions in the Q&A chat box. I will repeat the question, and you will provide a response. If we don't get around to everyone's questions today because of the time, we will get a response back to you within the next couple of days. We do have your email. And if you need to reach Mr. Provost or anyone on our team, we have a point of contact information slide at the end of this presentation. So, Mr. Provost, the first question that we have from Mr. Robin Wilson is, I've been told that the medallions are sent with double-sided tape to affix to the headstones. Is that true? And if so, does it actually withstand the weather for very long?
I don't know about that double-sided tape to affix to the headstone. I have never heard of any, in the 3 years I've been with NCA, I've never heard of any issues with medallions falling off or anything as such. I've been to so many of our cemeteries personally, but also working in the public affairs outreach shop, I've never heard of that. But what I'd like to do is definitely get a more concrete answer, no pun intended. But yeah, I don't anticipate any problems, but I want to give you a definite answer. So feel free to reach out to me directly, or I can provide it.
Okay, thank you so much for that response. Also, we have a question too from Mr. Mark Easter, and he asks, I may have missed it. What is the turnaround time for approval of signing up early for burial in a national cemetery?
Okay. Well, I'm going to address that question in 2 ways, and it's a very good question. I will say, let's just say, for example, a veteran passes away today. We can have that veteran buried in as little as 36 to 48 hours if necessary, or even sooner if there's a religious reason. Now, that being said, because it's first come, first serve, our pre-need program has proven so popular that the approval will probably take a couple of months, just to be frank. But that being said, if a veteran passes away during the time that their pre-need application is going through the look over in the queue, obviously that veteran would go to the front of the line. But the program is so very popular, and we have to bury the veterans that are currently passing away. So it will be a couple of months.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I do have some comments here, but I have a question for you, Mr. Provost, as well. Can a veteran who was buried in a private cemetery, if that person's headstone has been worn over a period of time, say if he was like a World War II veteran, can that stone be placed by the VA if the veteran is buried in a private cemetery?
It could be placed by VA if the grave is actually unmarked. So if there's no headstone there, then VA could replace, or if a private headstone was completely destroyed. But if it's normal wear and tear, no. But if it's completely destroyed, yes, or significantly worn, I believe still would count as if the grave is actually marked.
And who do you contact about that?
Yes, you can. Let me pull up the number here for our Memorial Products office. Let's see. Stones, markers, medallions. Okay, that number for headstones, markers, medallions, the official name is Memorial Products, is 1-800-96, or excuse me, 1-800-697-6947. I say again, 1-800-697-6947. And that's just for headstones, markers, medallions.
Okay, great. We have more questions coming in here. We have let's go back to the top. We have another question here, but from Mr. Marion Moser. What again is the cost, and can a veteran apply before death, and if so, how far ahead?
There's no cost to apply for the pre-need program. The savings, average savings to be buried in a VA National Cemetery with what we offer, anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000, and you can apply if you're a veteran who's, you're 18 years old. My wife was not too happy with me. We sat down on my 40th birthday. We went ahead and we applied. She didn't think it was a particularly fun thing to do, but she does realize the importance of it, and so you can apply as far in advance as you want. We do a brief background check just to make sure that that person not only is military eligible, but morally eligible in the sense that they're not convicted of a capital crime or, let's just say, certain very heinous offenses, like especially towards children and things like that. We want to ensure that nobody, is buried in our cemeteries that should not be buried there. So we do that background check. And then when a veteran passes away, even if it's 50 years after they applied for pre-need, we do a very, very quick check just to make sure. And 99.9% of the time, everything is fine. Everything is good to go. Yeah.
Okay. Another question from Mr. Mark Easter, and he says, do honorably discharged veterans automatically receive full honors, taps, and bugler at the gravesite service, or must it be requested?
Okay. Yes, those things must be requested, and there's a couple of things with that. Taps and a bugler is the minimum military honors, and all military honors are provided by Department of Defense. VA actually has very little to do with it. I mean, we tell them what the service is and so forth, but that actually all is on Department of Defense. Now, taps of the bugler will be played for any honorably discharged veteran. What is called full honors is where, you know, there's a firing party, there's a team to help carry the casket out of the hearse, for example. That is for a veteran who's actually retired and so forth. But for an honorably discharged veteran, taps and a bugler is the minimum.
Okay, thank you. We have one other question here from Mr. John Albright, and he asked, if a veteran is interested in seeking burial in Arlington, can they contact the Army for pre-need eligibility?
Arlington does not do any sort of pre-need eligibility. They're first come, first serve. And I would urge anybody who's interested in Arlington to obviously monitor that situation very closely, because Arlington is nearing capacity. So some of the consensus is they may need to tighten up their burial criteria even more so in order to remain open.
Okay. I have a question for you, and this is regarding the digital program. Is that only for veterans in the VA cemeteries?
Right now it is, but the goal is to expand it beyond that. It's just we only have 2 or 3 personnel covering the whole program. But we're working on it. That's the goal. Right now it's within VA, but we're working on it, I promise you.
Okay. I don't see any more questions here, Mr. Provost. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation today. Making sure we don't have any more questions. We have a couple of comments here.
Okay.
So at this time, I will ask Mr. Washington if he would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thanks, Joy. Larry, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me as well. Great information. It's something that many don't want to talk about, but we appreciate the information because it's very valuable. And I hope that those who have additional questions or need information, Larry's information is right there on the screen. I know Larry has a heart for serving as well, so please reach out to him and reach out to our team. They'll show you our website. And if you desire future webinars for your congregation, your network, please reach out to my team so that we can schedule something for you on a wide array of topics in the VA. So we appreciate it. And I think this is our last webinar for the month. So, hey, we've done good, and we appreciate it. All of you guys have been following us. And more importantly, you all have a blessed and safe and happy Thanksgiving and holiday. Thank you very much.
Again, if you registered for this event, we will send the presentation and any handouts to you after this webinar. This adjourns today's meeting. Thank you very much for joining us today, and stay safe. Thank you. Goodbye.